Hello and welcome. In this lecture, we will go through the steps necessary to set up IntelliJ Ultimate. We will briefly introduce this IDE and then we will see how to download and install IntelliJ Ultimate, set it up for our web skeleton project and web development with Java, create a simple Hello World example with Spring Boot and TimeLeaf. IntelliJ is an extremely powerful Java IDE. It comes in two versions. The Community Edition, that is free, however it presents some serious limitations. For instance, it doesn't have native Spring support and the number of active plugins is limited. And the Ultimate Edition. This is a commercial license, but it is the best IntelliJ edition, and it's very powerful. When I say powerful, I mean that it makes the task of writing Java web applications easy. It comes with a set of professional plugins for a number of handy features, from web development with HTML5, CSS and JavaScript, to application servers, Spring Boot, build tools, markup and much more. At the time of writing, a yearly license costs nearly £400, but if you are writing Java applications professionally, I strongly recommend to purchase this product because it will speed up your ability to deliver business value. The Ultimate version is also the one we will be using throughout this course. It comes with a month free evaluation. Therefore, you should be able to install it and follow along. Afterwards, you might decide either to purchase the license, move to the Community Edition, or use another IDE of your choice, for instance Spring STS. The first thing we need to do is to download IntelliJ Ultimate. Just open a web browser, Google IntelliJ Ultimate Download, and follow the link to the JetBrains website. Then, choose the right package for your operating system and download the file to your PC. I've already downloaded the file previously, so I won't be doing it again. Before moving on, you can pause the video until the file has been downloaded. Before installing IntelliJ, please make sure to have Java 8 and Maven 3 installed on your system. If this is not the case, I show how to install both Java and Maven in a previous lecture. The installation procedure depends on your operating system. On Mac, after double-clicking on the .dmg file, just drag the IntelliJ icon to your Applications folder. To launch IntelliJ, if you are on Mac, you can open Launchpad and click on the IntelliJ icon. If you are on Windows, just double-click the IntelliJ icon. There is a first-time setup that we need to go through in order to initialize IntelliJ. You will be asked whether you want to import the settings from a previous location or whether this is a fresh installation. In this case, we will go for a fresh installation. If you are installing the Ultimate Edition and don't have a license, you can select the Evaluate for free for 30 days button and accept the license agreement. You will then be asked to select a theme. I like the Dracula theme, and this is the theme that I will be using throughout the course. You can select the one you prefer. The theme will just drive the color scheme, it will not affect the functionality. Once you have selected the theme, select Next Key Maps. You will be asked to select a key map scheme. I'll go ahead and choose I've never used IDEA. Your scheme will vary if you are on Windows. Don't worry too much about this for now. You can always change the buttons at a later stage. Once you have selected your preferred key map scheme, click Next Default Plugins. Here, we will customize some of the default plugins as we will not need all of them. This will help keep the installation smaller and therefore more efficient. Start by clicking on the Customize link for Java frameworks. Here, make sure that only the following plugins are selected: J2E, Velocity, Grails, Hibernate, FreeMarker, AspectJ and Spring. This one is very important. Although we will not be using all these plugins throughout the course, these represent some of the most popular and helpful ones. When done, click Save Changes and go back. You can leave all the build tools as default, although we won't be using Ant. Click on the Customize link for web development. Here, make sure that the following plugins are selected: HTML, JavaScript, REST Client, Sass, and CSS. You can deselect all others. Click the Save Changes and Go Back button. Click on the Customize link for version controls. Here, make sure that GitHub and Git are selected. If you are already using Subversion, you might want to leave this selected as well. Feel free to remove all others. click the Save Changes and Go Back button. Click on the Customize link for test tools. Here, make sure that the following plugins are selected: JUnit, Gherkin, Coverage, and Cucumber for Java. You can deselect all others. When done, click the Save Changes and Go Back button. Click on the Customize link for application servers. Here, make sure that the following plugins are selected: Application Servers View, Tomcat and TomEE, DM Server, and Jetty. You can remove all others. Click the Save Changes and Go Back button. You can leave everything else as it is and click Next, Featured Plugins. You can install Live Edit Tool and Node.js. Do not install IDEA Vim. Finally, you can click on the Start Using IntelliJ IDEA button. Now, we are ready to set up our Spring Boot project. This is what we're going to do. First, we will create a Spring Boot project with IntelliJ. Then, we will make sure that the DevOps body folder, which we created in the previous lecture, points to the develop branch. If you haven't followed the previous 2 lectures on GitHub and the Git workflows, please go back and go through them, as there I explain how to create a GitHub account, the Git workflows, and the Git workflow we will be using in this project. I also show how to create our DevOps body project folder and how to set it up for the Git flow workflow. We will then create an Hello World feature branch and create an IntelliJ Hello World project in this branch. At this point, we will be able to start the Git flow workflow. We will push the newly added code to GitHub and we'll go through an Hello World example with Spring Boot and Thymeleaf. We will then close the lecture by following the Git flow workflow and by pushing our changes to GitHub. The first thing we need to do is to make sure that our GitHub DevOps body folder is pointing to the develop branch, and we need to create an Hello World feature branch. To do this, open a command prompt or your Git command prompt of choice and point it to your DevOps body folder. If you have followed along the previous lecture, you should have this in your working space. On my computer, I've got it under the dev folder. This folder should be pointing to the master branch. To check the branch you are currently working on, you can type the command git branch. The branch with an asterisk next to it is the one your folder is currently pointing to. Following the Git flow workflow we discussed in the previous lecture, we want to move to the develop folder. To do this, we type the command git checkout develop. If you receive a message that this branch does not exist, you can type the commands git checkout -b develop and git push -u origin develop. These commands will create a new local branch develop, push it remotely to GitHub, and set the local develop branch to track the remote one, so that from this point on you can type git push to push your code remotely. If you type the git branch command now, you should see that the asterisk is next to develop. Time to create our Hello World feature branch. First, we create a new local branch with the command git checkout -b hello world. Then, we push this branch remotely with the command git push -u origin hello world. Let's now create a Spring Boot DevOps body project in IntelliJ. Click the Create New Project icon. From the left menu, select Spring Initializer. From the Project SDK, click New and then JDK. If you have followed the previous lecture and have Java installed correctly, which means you will have a Java Home environment variable, IntelliJ should by default point to your Java Home location. If not, select the folder where you have installed Java 8. Click Next. In the Name field, enter DevOps Body. In the Type drop-down, leave Maven. In the Group field, enter com.devopsbody. In the Artifact field, enter DevOps Body. Leave the version as is. In the Description field, enter Startup Ready Web Skeleton Project. In the Package field, enter com.devopsbody. I like to set the root package name with the same name as the Maven group. When done, click Next. The next screen allows us to choose the Spring Boot modules we want to start our application with. In the Web section, click the Web checkbox. In the Template Engines section, click the ThymeLeaf checkbox. This sets up a Spring Boot project which uses Spring Web, which includes Spring MVC and ThymeLeaf. Click Next. As project name, enter DevOps Buddy. In the project location, enter the location to your GitHub project. On my Mac, this is ~dev/dev/DevOps Buddy. IntelliJ will create the Spring Boot project in the GitHub folder currently pointing to the Hello World branch. Finally, click Finish. When finished, in the top left menu you should see a DevOps Buddy folder. If you expand it, you will notice that this is a Maven project with the classic Maven project structure. It has source main Java and source test Java folders, a pom.xml file, plus a bunch of other files and folders which we will not consider right now. In the bottom right, you will also see that IntelliJ tells us that this is a Git project and it's pointing to the Hello World branch. You will also notice that some of the files are red. This means that these files are currently not being managed by Git. We will address this soon by adding them to the Git index. Before we can push the code to GitHub, we need to edit the .gitignore file and add Maven and IntelliJ project files to be ignored. The .gitignore file tells Git which files to ignore when synchronizing with the remote repository. It's bad practice to push remotely files that are specific to our local environment or which can be auto-generated by a build process. We just want to push the code that others will be using and not our local settings. Just double-click on the .gitignore file to open it in the editor. We can now see some of the reasons why IntelliJ is such a great tool. If you notice on the top right, IntelliJ offers an option to install the gitignore plugin. This plugin has got some native support for gitignore. You can go ahead and install the gitignore plugin and restart IntelliJ when done. Once IntelliJ restarts, go ahead and add the following entries and notice how the plugin assists you in editing this file. target.idea.devopsbuddy.yml. We now need to push this file to Git. Right-click on the file, choose Git, Add, and then right-click again on this file and choose Git and then Commit File. Enter a commit comment and select Commit and Push from the Commit drop-down button. Finally, click the Push button when presented with this option. We can now push the entire project to GitHub. Right-click on the DevOps Buddy folder and select Git and then Add. Right-click on the DevOps Buddy folder again and select Git and then Commit Directory. Enter a commit message such as Initial Hello World Commit, and from the Commit drop-down button select Commit and Push. Finally, when you see the Push window, click the Push button. Congratulations! You have just set up your first Spring Boot application. We can now create our Hello World example. Under the source main Java folder, right-click on the com.devopsbuddy package and select New Package and type controllers as value. Then, right-click on the newly created package and select New and then Java class. Type Hello World controller in the name and select OK. When asked by IntelliJ if you want to add this class to the Git index, click the Remember Don't Ask Again checkbox and then select Yes. This will open the Hello World controller class in the editor. Annotate the class with the @controller annotation to indicate that this is a Spring MVC controller, and then add the following method: public string say hello, and in the method add the following line of code: return quote index quote. Finally, annotate the method with the @request mapping annotation. After the annotation, open a bracket, enter a / between quotes and close the bracket. This instructs Spring to invoke the sayHello method for every HTTP request hitting our application. The last step to follow is to add a ThymeLeaf index template. Under Source Main Resources, you will find the Templates folder. When we selected ThymeLeaf as a Spring Boot module, Spring created this folder for us and configured Spring to search for all view names under this folder. Since our method returns a view named index, Spring will by default look for a template with the name viewName.html, in our case index.html. For the sake of simplicity, we will create a simple HTML5 page which displays the text Hello World. Right-click on the Templates folder and select New and then HTML5 file. Name it index.html. Add the closing tag to the meta tag in the header, otherwise TimeLeaf will fail the parsing. Enter Hello World as title and add an h1 element to the body with the value Hello World. We are now ready to test our application. Right-click on the DevOps Buddy application class and select Run DevOps Buddy application. This will start the DevOps Buddy Spring Boot application. To test our application, open a web browser and point to localhost:8080. The text Hello World will be displayed. Congratulations! You have created, run and tested your first Spring Boot application using IntelliJ Ultimate. We have gone through a lot in this lecture. We have set up IntelliJ Ultimate, we have created a feature branch for our Hello World example, we have created our first Spring Boot project which uses Spring MVC and TimeLeaf, we have committed this project to GitHub, and finally we have created an Hello World controller which prints the text Hello World when the browser points to localhost:8080. As an exercise, push the final code to GitHub. You now know how to do this by going through the usual add, commit, push lifecycle. You can either use the command line or IntelliJ features as just shown in this lecture. Thank you for your time and I see you in the next lecture.